I begin this morning with a sad and difficult story. It's a story that's hard to hear, but important for many reasons. I want to say up front that if you have had a trauma of some kind or survived some significant difficulty, you may react more strongly than others. And it's okay to recognize that in yourself and to give yourself permission to take care of yourself in whatever way you might need to. The story I want to tell you about is about a little boy named Carl Joseph Walker. He was from Springfield, Massachusetts. He was one of 4 kids, of a single mother, part of a big extended family that included his aunt and his grandmother. He was in 6th grade at a charter school in Springfield. And like his older sister, he played 3 sports. He was an advanced reader, a friendly, helpful boy with a wonderful smile, a great neighbor. But he was also a deeply unhappy child. Though he was greatly beloved at home, he was cruelly bullied at school. Teased and threatened and harassed, he had to eat his lunch with the school's guidance counselor. His mother spoke to the school authorities, but that didn't help. Carl grew more and more silent at home, more withdrawn with his mother. He stopped talking about school, and he came home in silence. One afternoon in May of 2009, Carl came home from school and said hi to his mother, making dinner in the kitchen, and he went upstairs to the 3rd floor of their house. When his mom called him and he didn't answer, she went upstairs to get him. And that's where she found him, hanging from the staircase, his book bag still in the landing. The paramedics were called, but it was too late. He left his mom a note, telling everyone how much he loved them, and saying goodbye. I was reminded of that story, which I had heard, while I was watching a show that is very popular in the United States. It's not on anymore, but it still runs in reruns. It's called Extreme Makeover Home Edition. You may have seen it. And the design team travels around the country, and they help renovate homes for people who have significant difficulties in their lives. This design team had gone to Massachusetts to build a new home for the Walker family because they couldn't bear to live in the old one. The grief and the sorrow had trapped the entire family. They couldn't stand to go upstairs anymore. 3 of the 5 family members slept together in cots in the living room because none of them could bear to pass the stairwell. His mother made a statement early in the show that broke my heart. Sometimes I have to wonder whether I will ever be happy again. I wondered the same thing, too, as I watched this incredible woman. This was a 2-hour special presentation, at least 1 hour of which was total heartbreak. And I almost didn't keep watching. I have sons, too, and one of them has significant challenges in mental health arenas, and the idea that I might come home to find him that way was much too close to home, so I almost turned off the television. But I kept watching. And I kept admiring this woman who has spent the years since her son's death working to end bullying through her nationwide education and advocacy. There is no daytime talk show in the United States where she has not appeared. No committee in Congress that hasn't heard her testimony. No parents group that she will not speak to. No high school too big or too small for her to visit. She said something that haunts me still. I failed my son in life, she said, so I promised myself that I would not fail him in death. At the end of the show, the camera followed the family through the rooms of their new house, and their relief and their gratitude really was something to see. I feel a lot of peace here, Carl's mother said, and felt that she might finally find a little rest. I've spent time with you this weekend talking about this faith of ours, its capacity for being a beacon of justice in an unjust world. And many of you have approached me to work out in your own heads how you want to approach your small part of the great work. We are a religion with the capacity to embrace so many. Sometimes I think of Unitarian Universalists as the biggest faith tent in the world, the embodiment of a very famous verse by the Universalist writer Edwin Markham. It's called Outwitted. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. I am humbled that so many of you found in my words the inspiration to renew your personal passion for justice, to draw the circle wider, to expand our theological tent. And I look forward to hearing more and more in the coming months and years about the witness of European Unitarian Universalists. There is so much that can be done and so much that you can do in ways that no one else can. But I started with that heartbreaking story to remind us that some of us, maybe a lot of us, begin or solidify our lives as faithful people because of tragedy or sadness or difficulty. Some of us are drawn to church because our own burdens are too great to carry alone. After all, there's so many people in this world who are in pain. So many people each of us know. I think about my friend from seminary whose partner of 15 years died this past summer. Friends from college who are dying right now. A member of my congregation dying from a degenerative disease who's made an appointment to see me when I get home because he's determined to marry his partner before the end. People who have gone for years or more without work, another year of trying or failing to have a child they longed for, coping with the lingering sadness of caring for someone who was struggling with illness. There is not a single person in this room who does not know the meaning of suffering in a real way, and that includes me. So what am I here to tell you in the face of all that sadness, all the sadness in the world, so much incredible sadness? I'm here to say that even so, we must rejoice. We must. I'm here to tell you that you and your life are so much more than your pain, so much more than the wounds you carry and the scabs that you pick over every day. And we can know things because of our suffering. Because when we are open to the suffering and the pain that we know, we are more open to the suffering and the pain of others. We know and can learn that when we open our hearts and our congregations to others who suffer, people who need that big tent and that broad embrace of liberal religion, that we are healing ourselves as well as them. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this morning is that we are now approaching this season of cloying cheerfulness. In the United States, Thanksgiving is coming. And though it's not a European holiday, I would be surprised if many of you were not planning to celebrate it in some way here on the continent. And then there's the spate of winter holidays, Hanukkah and Yule and Christmas and Boxing Day and Kwanzaa and New Year's Day and all that enforced joy. Everybody telling us to be cheerful and to shop. Lots of shopping. But all that enforced joy can take a toll on us, taunt us with the missing voices and faces that we see. For the first time since he was born, my oldest son will not be with us for Thanksgiving. It's the right decision for him. I don't feel neglected. He doesn't feel abandoned. It makes sense. It's a day I knew was coming. But I long for him already. Perhaps there is something or someone that you long for too. I think that those of us who have these longings should own them and not run away from them. I think we should refuse to pretend. I think we should take the paradoxical view. I'm suggesting that it's all right to rejoice, and in fact, it's essential for us to celebrate the gifts of this life, even as we acknowledge our sorrow and our loss. One does not automatically cancel out the other. Sometimes it's only through connecting with what is bitter and painful and difficult that we can gain the capacity to celebrate, and our wounds can be the vessel for something more than our pain. They are the wellsprings of compassion. They give birth to an open-heartedness that helps us help others. They can lead us to a deeper dissatisfaction with the world as it is, and can move us toward action that serves not just our own needs, but the needs of our part of the world. I reread recently a dialogue between two of my very favorite people, the Buddhist nun and writer Pema Chodron, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Alice Walker. Can you imagine the two of them in a room together? I would give anything to hear them talking to each other. The conversation was published in a magazine called Shambhala Sun. It was a talk about pain and suffering that's a given in every life, and about our capacity to decide whether our pain will mean something. Alice Walker talks about deep suffering that she endured during a particular period in her life and her inability to move through it until she happened upon one of Pema Chodron's books. And with the help of those meditations and an embrace of some Buddhist practice, she did move through it. And she and Chodron were talking about it, and Pema Chodron said that the reason she was so taken by the teachings of this kind of Buddhist meditation called Lojong meditation is that they are based on using suffering as good medicine, like the Buddhist metaphor of using poison as medicine. The Lojong teaching, she says, say we can take that difficult moment and flip it. The very thing that causes us to harden can soften us and make us more decent and kinder people. So Pema Chodron asked Alice Walker, I want to ask you about joy, she said. It's all very well to talk about poison as medicine and breathing in the suffering and sending out relief, but did you really find any joy coming out of all this period? And Alice Walker said with some enthusiasm, oh yes, part of the joyousness was knowing we have help. People have had pain for a long time. They've been dealing with it. And they have had the foresight to leave practices for us to use. The other really joyous thing, she said, is that I feel more open. I feel more openness toward people in my world. I think this is the result of going the distance in your own heart. Really being disciplined about opening your heart as much as you can. Going the distance in your own heart. I love that phrase. Opening your heart as much as you can, which is easier to say than it is to do. Making room in your heart for everything, the joy as well as the suffering, is difficult work, and it takes practice. Sometimes it's specific Buddhist practice of Lojong. Sometimes it's a different kind of meditation practice. Sometimes it's prayer. Sometimes it's what I consider a uniquely Unitarian Universalist practice of putting our bodies where our hearts are, in the service of others. There is a certain joy in spending time each day paying more attention to what someone else needs than what I need. Being of service takes the relentless focus off ourselves and gets us out of our heads and gets us away from our own sadness and our own resentments. It gives us perspective and lets us see where our blessings are and reveals the glimmers of joy that might awaken in us. Every religious tradition that we can think of includes some practice that places others ahead of ourselves. And they are practices that are not meant to deprive us, but to redirect us to a source of greater joy. And so I present you with a challenge in these coming winter months as we approach both the darkening days and these holidays of light. What might you do to put the needs of someone else before your own? How might you open your heart more? What will you give of yourself to someone else? How will you choose to define what is happening to you and make it count? May you find ways not to look away, in the words of our reading today. Not to look away, but extend your heart and expand your heart and expand this big tent faith of ours to include not just sorrow, but your joy and your trust, not just your personal concerns, but your capacity for service, and a chance to build a larger life than you ever imagined. Blessed be, and amen.